Alrighty then. G'day guys. Hi, how are y'all doing? I hope that you guys are well, whatever time, whatever day, whatever place it happens to be. My name is Michael, I'm the Dano's Gamer, and we're back with DAG Reads. DAG Reads, Emily Rodda's Rowan of Rin series. Last time we met was a couple of weeks ago where we finished off Rowan of Rin, and now are well and truly into, well, not well and truly, we're about to start the new book. So I'm very keen for that. I was actually very tempted today to to go over like the PAX schedule or do something PAX hypey. But you know what? I've been working hard, and we've been focused very heavily on the PAX stuff. And while that's really cool and really exciting, I think I am very keen to just have a nice, chilled out stream with you guys, with you fine, awesome people. We had a couple of really cool events go on last week. We had Monday was my birthday celebration. So for those of you who haven't checked it out, the VOD is still up there, still there for you to check out, where I ran a 4.5 hour D&D game. It was a one-shot, basically D&D Iron Chef, where a whole bunch of my friends came out and we played a game. It was so much fun. There were just such colorful characters, and it was just a great time. It was an awesome time. And of course, it was a good fundraiser for my trip to the US next year. So it was great. We raised about $500, I think, for the whole event, which donations you can still see. We're still collecting stuff for that trip. So it was awesome. It was great. It was wonderful. Then on last night or yesterday, Saturday, I was with Robert Hartley doing a fundraiser with him where we were running him through a D&D character, a Pathfinder First Edition character, where we were making a Pathfinder character for him. Is that going on my Patreon, on my YouTube? It will go on my Patreon. It is already available on my Twitch. So if you actually go into the Twitch VODs, it should be there as well. I am going to get it edited in and, sort of have bits cut and changed and stuff like that, so it's not so like meaty, but that'll be at a later date. But yeah, anyway, so me and Rob, we sat down and we ran another fundraiser, as we just added tons and tons and tons of complications to things, which is just going to be absolutely amazing, because once we get to the end of it, we're going to play a game with his character, which already by level 10 has like 4 classes. We've actually ran him through a mechanic of like going to school, and we did we've got a rival to design for him, whole bunch of stuff. So yeah, a bunch of stuff. Hey, Avarian, good to see you, buddy. How are you? Hope you're doing well. I saw you streaming earlier on today. I lurk a lot. But yeah, that was it. So yeah, lots of busy stuff this week. But very, very happy to be back and truly just relaxing with you fine, wonderful, and amazing people. So, to give a brief recap into the first book, Rowan of Rin, Rowan is a very, very weak protagonist from the town of Rin. Rin being a village that lives high in the mountains, where they live in quite isolation, I guess, at the foot of a large mountain. The river ran dry, so a group of these like big burly individuals climbed the mountain in order to find out what was causing problems. Obviously, spoilers from here on in. Rowan was almost cursed, I guess, to accompany the group to the top of the mountain by the witch of the town. And she had cursed Rowan, so he was the only one who could read the map, or could produce the map. And one by one, the entire party started to drop off during the adventure, one after the other. To be fair, Rowan was also a young teen during the last book. That's true, he's a very young teenager, yeah. But, I mean, even among his peers, he was always seen to be, weaker and stuff like that. But anyway, so they went through their trials and their challenges, and eventually Rowan faced a dragon at the top of the mountain, which was responsible for the lack of the water, because the dragon was injured and couldn't melt the ice that was flooding or fueling the river. So yeah, they dealt with that. If you want to see more about that, go read the other things or read the book. But today we're going to be continuing and in the sequel adventure named Rowan and the Travelers. So what we know about Rowan is obviously that he's from Rin. He tends to the bookshire, which are kind of like these giant, I imagine them as yaks or buffalo, kind of a mix between the two, these huge, heavy-set herding creatures. And they don't really get along with too many people outside of Rin. They do know of the other people, like the Maris and the Travelers and the like, because they all, once upon a time, fought a war against another group. But this book is Rowan and the Travelers, and we don't know much about the Travelers yet, apart from the fact that Alan, one of the characters, his father was a traveler, and his mother was from Rin. His mother left Rin to go travel with their father, had Alan. Alan then came back with his mother, and was kind of outcasted as well, which is one of the reasons why he went on the mountain journey, to try and prove himself as well. So yeah, I imagine them as big, very fluffy cows, like the Scottish cows. Yeah, the Scottish, yep, I could see that too. Absolutely see that. All right. But yeah, hey, Bruin, nice to see you, buddy. Welcome in. Pop a squat, chill out, relax, and enjoy as we start Chapter 1 of Rowan and the Travelers. Good news, bad news. The Travelers are coming! The Travelers are coming! The news spread quickly through the village of Rin. The children shouted in excitement, their voices ringing through the valleys and echoing back to the great mountain that rose above the town. They shouted it running madly down from the hills, past the bookshare fields and the orchards, beside the gardens, and all the way to the village square. They had seen the 3 forerunners flying over the hills, the silken kites to which clung brilliantly against the sky. They knew the carts, the horses, and the chattering, singing people were not far behind. The travelers were coming, bringing games and stories, dancing and music, wonderful things to trade, and more. Soon their bright tents would be spread, fluttering like huge butterflies among the yellow slip daisies on the hill above the village, and at night their bonfires would brighten the darkness and their music ring through the valley. They would stay a week or 2 or 3, and for the children, every day would be a holiday. Hey, welcome in, Mac, and thank you so much, Noria, for the subscription. It's so good to see you. The Travelers are coming! Standing by the bookshare pool, watching a butterfly struggle from its cocoon of the branch of a tree, the boy Rowan, keeper of the bookshare, heard the cry, but he had already guessed the news. Long before the other children spied the forerunners, he had seen the bookshare raise their head and look to the valley, to the hills. The big animals were listening to something he could not hear. So the Travelers are coming, he said to Star, his favorite of all the great beasts. You heard their pipes before, didn't you? Star stood swaying, looking out into the hills. We did not expect to see them this year, Rowan went on, but 'tis the season for them. The tadpoles in the stream are growing legs and changing to frogs. Oh, excuse me. Hey, Hester, thank you so much for the donation. Greatly appreciated, my dear friend. Oh, sorry. Sneezing. Okay. The tadpoles in the stream are growing legs and changing into frogs. The caterpillars are becoming butterflies, and the slip daisies are in bloom. He sniffled. As well I know, the pollen makes my nose run. There you go. Thank you, everyone. Star rumbled deep in her throat and shifted her feet restlessly. What ails you, Star? Rowan asked, scratching her neck under the thick wool. Be still. All is well. He looked at Star in puzzlement. All of the bookshare had been unsettled lately, and he couldn't understand why. He had checked them over carefully. There was no sign of sickness, and yet for days they seemed to be nervous and unhappy. All is well, Star, he said again. But Star pawed the ground, pushed at his hand with her heavy head, and refused to be comforted. The Travelers are coming! Strong John, working in the orchard, heard the cry with surprise, then smiled. The Travelers had come in Rin's direction only 12 months before. He had not expected to see them again so soon, but he welcomed them. For with the Travelers came their bees. Soon the bees would be busy in the sweet white blossoms of his hoopberry trees. Their hives would begin to overflow with rich golden hoopberry honey for the Travelers to gather, to eat, and to sell. But while the bees worked for the Travelers, they would be working for John too. Bumbling from flower to flower, they would spread their sticky yellow pollen to make sure that fruits would form when the flowers fell. Thanks to the Travelers' bees, John would have a very good harvest in the autumn. So John was pleased when he heard the children's voices, but he knew others would not, for others knew the news would be bad. That's kind of cool. Like, just imagining, like, the idea of, like, an apiary on a caravan is kind of very tempting. I think maybe if I do a D&D character, I might, like, do something with an apiary type thing. Bear with me for 2 seconds. I'm gonna go quickly get something from my nose just before I sneeze again. I will return momentarily. Alright, also got my sugar-free drink, my lychee water, which is going to be good. Alright, let us continue. Oh, thank you, Noria. That's so kind of you. Okay. The travelers are coming. Broden, the furniture maker, heard the cry and frowned, drumming her stubby finger on the smooth wood of half-finished tables underneath her hand. Slept, she grumbled, kicking her feet in the sawdust on the floor. Time wasting, idle, useless slips. She ran her hand over her forehead. She was tired out, and tired of this. This was the last straw. The travelers had turned the settled life of the village upside down. They cared nothing for rules or order or hard work. They had no settled home or proper jobs and wanted none. That was why she, and others who thought like her, called the travelers slips, after the wild slip daisies on the hill. They make her uncomfortable. They made her angry. The travelers are coming. In this little house, Timon, the teacher, heard the cry and sighed over his book. While the travelers were camping near, the Rin children would fidget and whisper under the teaching tree. Their pockets would bulge with toys and tricks that they had begged or bought from the camp to the hill. Their mouths would be full of honeyed sweets and chews. Their heads would be buzzing with travelers' tales and legends. But still, thought Timon, leaning back on his chair and putting his hands behind his head, this visit might be a blessing. It has been a long, hard winter. The children have been tired and out of sorts lately. The travelers will cheer them up. He smiled. By my life, I love travelers' tales myself. As a boy, he thought. And if the stories of the Valley of Gold, the giants of Inspray, and the misty crystal, the pit of Erin, and all the rest didn't hurt me, then why should they hurt the children now? Timon considered. Perhaps he could visit the travelers' camp himself this year, listen once again to the stories, and perhaps buy a handful of honey chews. It was so long since he had last tasted one of those. Timon closed his eyes and chuckled sleepily to himself at the thought. His mouth was already watering. The travelers are coming! Alan the baker heard the cry as he kneaded dough in his warm kitchen. You hear that, Mother? More father's people are on their way, he called over his shoulder. You had better stop all that talk of getting old and get your dancing shoes out. Sarah came in slowly from the shop, wiping her hand on her apron. I think my dancing days are over, Alan, she said, with a tired smile. But you had better get your voice in order. For once, we of Rin have a tale to tell the travellers. As good as any they've ever told us. Our friends will want to hear of your quest to the mountain. Yours, and John's, and... and young Rowan's most of all, laughed Alan. But Rowan's much too shy to tell the story himself, so yes, I will. Who better to surprise the travellers, since I'm half traveller myself? Sarah fingered the thin string of plaited silk that hung around her throat. It was a traveller wedding necklace. Long ago, when she was young, Sarah had left Rin with a traveller husband. But her perfect happiness had ended when her man was killed by the invading Zebak during the Great War of the Plains. When the land was at peace once more, she had returned to the village with Alan, her only son, then just a boy. Sarah had been glad to see her home again, but she knew that times had often been hard for her half-traveler child as he grew up in Rin. It was as though he was caught between two worlds, the free-ranging life of a traveler and the peaceful, settled life of his mother's people. Sarah's heart had sometimes bled as she saw him struggling to be accepted by the Rin folk, who despised and distrusted travelers, and who therefore were ready to despise and distrust him too. She had not wanted Alan to join the group that had climbed the Forbidden Mountain in the autumn. She had feared for him, but now she was glad that he had gone, for on that terrible journey he had found that he had no more weakness than the others, the heroes of the village, and those who scorned him had realized it too. And more, Alan had brought back from his quest a special gift. A gift that looked as though it would bring riches to the town. So at last he felt he had proven himself that he was a worthy citizen of Rin. And because of that, he had now found a new peace. Surely nothing could destroy it now. Why, I wonder, have they returned too? Alan murmured. His merry face had grown thoughtful. Many in the village will not be pleased to see them here again. Sarah watched her son as he turned back to his work. She listened to the children's voices ringing through the valley, and for the first time a shadow of fear flooded through her mind. Why had the travelers come again? And so soon? Why? Alright, that is the end of Chapter 1. Chapter 2, The Darkness Gathers. I mean, we can talk about Chapter 1, and I'll quickly have a drink, but yes, no, I think everything that I spent the first part of the stream talking about was now pretty well covered in that first chapter of the book. Like, they went to the mountain, it was in the autumn, they did the thing, they, it was good, it was good. Whew. Also, for the purposes of the stream, guys, if you guys have any questions, whether it's about the book, whether it's about D&D or life or whatever in general, do feel free to ask. Always happy to chat between chapters, rest my voice, to just do things. So yeah, do feel free. This is not a be quiet and listen to DAG read. It's a DAG read. It's like, yeah, we're just hanging out and chilling. Plus, I get to relive one of my favorite fantasy novels from when I was a kid. There you go. All right. And also, here's an extra little bit. This isn't my favorite of the series either. My favorite of the series is still to come. And it's actually the reason why I didn't get into Harry Potter when it was there, because I thought Harry Potter was a ripoff. But yeah, we'll talk about that later. Anyway. So, Pathfinder. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Myth. All right. Darkness Gathers. In the gardens, Bree and Hannah had heard the children's cries and put down their hoes. For them, this news was very bad indeed. "How could this be?" exclaimed Hannah, turning to her husband, wiping sweat from her forehead. "They never come 2 years in a row." Bree and Hannah, and the keepers of Rin's gardens before them, have always hated traveler visits. Travelers could move silently like the shadows of the night. New peas, tended herbs, all the best things in the garden. They had a habit of disappearing like magic overnight when the travelers were about. Others in the village, like people like John of the Orchard and Alan the Baker, had always laughed at the gardener's rage. Even if a few vegetables had somehow found their way into travelers' cookpots over the years, what did it matter when the travelers brought the village so much useful trade and so much pleasure? Bree spat on the ground with disgust, and perhaps such people would sing a different tune this year, even the half-traveler Alan. For after all, it was he who had brought the seed for their new crops to the valley. He looked at the young mountain-berry plants that now filled a quarter of the garden. They were thriving, holding their small glossy leaves up to the sun and stretching their delicate new tendrils out across the brown soil. Perfumed red flowers bloomed along their tiny branches and already weighed down with luscious little red fruits. A sturdy, fast-growing plant that bloomed and fruited at the same time. Truly, the mountainberry was miraculous, and a precious new crop. A crop that Bree was determined to keep for Rin alone. He thought of the travelers slipping into the garden by night and plundering his precious bushes and gathering the fruit. Thieving slips, he burst out. They must not hear of the mountain berries, Hannah. They must not. She nodded. We will call a meeting, she said. We will tell the others of our fears. Then no one will breathe a word, and we will guard the garden as well. I stood guard last year, Bree muttered, and what good did it do? Last year you fell asleep, Bree. They put a sleep spell on me, I know it. Red-faced, Bree scowled in the direction of the hills. Nonsense, snapped Hannah. Sleep spells. Never heard such rubbish. You sound like Neil the Potter, talking childish nonsense like that. Bree turned away, haunching his shoulders. We will call a meeting, he mumbled. Come and wash, Hannah. We do not have much time. Hannah said nothing. After a moment, Bree picked up the hose and trudged into the tool shed. Hannah rubbed her eyes. A great wave of tiredness suddenly rolled over her. She would have given anything to have a lie down and rest, even just for a minute. I'm tired out, she thought. I'm so tired of working day in and day out, and now this? She glanced at her husband. He was wearily putting the hose away and closing the shed door. Poor Bree. What had she been thinking of? She had to keep going, just as he did. Now there was a new problem to be faced. Well, they would face it together. If all went well, next season there would be mountain berries in plenty, and then they could rest, and Rin could feast. Trade, too, for no one on the coast has ever tasted this new delicious fruit. Wealth would be theirs at last, if all went well. Hey, Faulty, good to see you. Welcome in. Also, Alan and Rowan. Yes, Alan and Rowan. Causing trouble. Alright. The bell sounded in the village square. Rowan heard it from the Bookshire fields. There's a meeting, Star, he said. I must go. You take care of the herd while I'm away. Star rumbled in her throat and looked out towards the hill. The meeting will be about the travellers, I'm sure, Rowan told her. John will be pleased to see them again, and so will Alan. And Marley, the weaver, will be glad because the travellers will trade their silks for her warm cloth. But Broden will be angry, and Bree and Hannah will be furious, because the travellers steal from the gardens. He smiled guiltily. If Bree and Hannah weren't looking, he himself had sometimes grabbed a handful of new peas through the fence on his way to the Bookshire fields. His animals were very fond of new peas. Then Rowan remembered the mountain berries, and the brightness of the afternoon seemed to dim. If the travellers interfered with the mountain berries... Star swayed and pawed at the ground restlessly. Rowan forgot his own problems and gripped her rough mane in concern. Be calm, he soothed. You have nothing to fear. Star fixed him with small black eyes and nudged him with his shoulders. It was as though she was trying to tell him something. He felt her skin quiver under thick wool. Rowan sighed. Behind him, the butterfly had finished stretching its new wings and flew away, leaving its hard cocoon hanging and empty in the tree. A light, cool breeze ruffled his hair, carrying with it the scent of the slip daisies from the hills. His nose began to run again, and his eyes prickled. And in the village, the bell went on ringing. Crouched by the fire in her tiny hut, Sheba the wise woman heard the bell through a dream. She jerked awake and bent to throw sticks on the blaze. The fire then leapt.
A meeting it is.
No, where was the voice?
Yes, no. I bought 7 sixpence. Okay, that's it. Yes, no, I have it now. A meeting is it, you fools, she croaked, watching the pitchers in the flames. You fools chatter on while darkness gathers. She pressed her hand to her head. Terrifying words that had cried in her mind for days circled in there, endlessly and without meaning. And with the words over and over again were the pictures. 3 kites, yellow, red, and white, against a blue sky. The pale face of a boy she knew, Rowan of the Bookshire. A golden owl with glittering green eyes that stared at her full of knowledge, commanding her to understand. There were other pictures too, lit by flashes of golden light, then shut off by inky blackness. The Bookshire field empty, the village of Rin standing still and silent, and most terrifying of all,
a heaped bundle of old rags and straggled hair lying by a dead fire. She herself in this very room, helpless, while the enemy... Sheba struggled to her feet. Waking or sleeping, there was no escape. The fire spat and crackled. She backed away from it. Suddenly she knew what she must do. She must go about her work. She must escape from this place of nightmares. She must go collecting roots on the hill, where the sweet slip daisies bloom and the air was clear. There, perhaps, she could think. As she shuffled from her hut, the bells stopped ringing. The people of Rin were gathered. They were meeting in the square. "Fools!" spat Sheba, and staggered on her way. Chapter 3. Alright. Sheba telling fortunes, making bad stuff happen. No, that's not how it works. We learned all about that in Encanto. She doesn't make bad things happen, she just sees when they're about to. And then it's all like, hey guys, watch out for this thing. And then everyone's like, you're making bad things happen. But that ain't it. That ain't the thing. That's not how it works. It's interesting though. I don't quite remember what the clues meant in this one. Yeah, not sure at all. But we'll figure it out. We'll find out together. Boom. All right. Here we go. Next chapter, the Forerunners. Welcome, friends. John's voice sounded loudly on the hills. He, Marley, the weaver, and Alan the baker had shaded their eyes against the sun as they watched the three approaching Forerunners raise their arms in answer to the call. Yep, it's always going to be there. It's there forever. Rowan was standing behind them and saw one in the center put something to their lips. Wherever the travelers went, the Forerunners flew before, warning of dangers ahead, signaling with their tiny reed pipes as if to tell the tribe if they should halt or go forward. The pipe's sound was pitched too high for ordinary people to hear. Only the travelers, their ears trained over centuries, could hear the messages. The travelers, and as Rowan had discovered, the Booksha. Perhaps other animals heard the pipes too. Rowan did not know. In fact, the older he grew, the more he realized just how little he did about the lands beyond the Valley of Rin. The travelers had ranged far and wide over the lands for the past age. They knew it as well as they knew themselves. They were a part of it, as were the trees, the rocks, the birds, and the Booksha. Some of the tales told by Ogden, their storyteller, and the leader of their tribe, were thousands of years old. But the people of Rin were newcomers. Barely 300 years had passed since their ancestors were brought to the coast as warrior slaves of the invading Zebak. It was then that they turned against their masters, joined with the Maris folk and the travelers to defeat them, and finally traveled inland to find the valley that was now their new home. 300 years was like nothing to the Maris folk, and less than nothing to the travelers, who believed that their tribe had roamed this land since time had begun. Yet, I do not feel like a newcomer, Rowan thought, looking down to Rin, with its neat lanes and houses, its bubbling streams, the green and brown patchwork of its field, the hoopberry orchards, and the Booksha straying up toward the hill. This is the only home I know. It will not be long now, murmured John and to Alan and Marley. Let us hope that what we hear will satisfy the warriors below. He bent and picked up a leaf of slip daisy, twisting it between his fingers. Rowan knew that the leaf was a part of the welcoming. Slip daisies were made of 3 round lobes joined together as a clove of leaf were. They were used as a sign of friendship between the travelers, the Maris folk, and the people of Rin. The Forerunners began flying low, their bare toes lightly skimming the tips of the grass and flowers. Their kites, one yellow, one red, and one white, rippled and flapped in the breeze as the ropes of their plaited silk guided them where they were pulled in tight and agile brown hands. Rowan drank in the sight greedily. He had never seen the forerunners so closely before. 3 adult Rin welcomers usually met them alone, but this time the village wanted news quickly, and they decided at their first meet to find the reason for the travelers' unexpected visit before discussing the mountainberry problem further. Rowan was to run to the village with the news as soon as it was given. "It is my one regret," said Alan, watching the bright kites, "that my mother took me away from the travellers before I was old enough to be trained as a forerunner." "Would you have wished for that, Alan?" asked John in some surprise. "It's a rank of honour, I know, but the dangers go with it, surely." Alan smiled. Sorry, that was supposed to be John. Let me try that again. "It's a rank of honour, I know, but great dangers go with it, surely." Alan smiled wearily. "You're right, of course," he admitted. "If the forerunners meet trouble, they meet it alone, while the tribe stays back in safety. That's their duty." "Oh, but the kites, John! The kites! To fly on the wind is every traveller child's dearest wish." As he spoke, the forerunners' flight slowed to a walking pace. Then with one movement, the 3 put their feet upon the ground. Their kites billowed behind them for a moment, then folded gracefully into thin, trailing sacks of silk. The forerunners gathered them up hurriedly, draping silks over their shoulders as they moved forward to greet the welcomers. I thought that they were just people with kites. I didn't realize that they were like people on the kites, flying and gliding. That's kind of cool. I like that. Hey, Campbell, what's up? Welcome in, man. Why is it saying you're a first-time chatter? I feel like I've seen you like a bunch of times. If you are a first-time chatter, then welcome. If you're not a first-time chatter, that I don't know, it's just strange. But yes. Weasel! Hi, Weasel Queen. Good to see you. Welcome in. Okay, let's continue, shall we? John held out the slip daisy. "Welcome, friends," he said again. Rowan stared at the forerunners with fascination. They wore clothes of bright silk. Their feet were bare. Their brown hair, threaded with flowers, feathers, and ribbons, fell in tangled curves over their shoulders. There were 2 boys and a girl, a little older than he was. The boys were small-boned and slim like Alan. They looked up at John with dark eyes that danced under slanted brows. The girl was sterner. She was tall, almost as tall as Marley. Her brow was straight and her eyes were strange, a light blue color. She stepped forward and took the leaf from John. "I am Zeal, adopted daughter of Ogrim, let me try that again. I am Zeal, adopted daughter of Ogden, the storyteller. The travelers thank you for your welcome, friends," she said formally. "We will make camp here while it suits your pleasure, and we will welcome your visits each night after sunset." These, Rowan knew, were the words that were always said. They meant little. The travelers made camp anywhere they liked. No one but the Zebak had ever tried to interfere with them, and the Zebak, according to tales, regretted it. He waited for what would come next. "May we know what brings you here again so soon?" John asked. "Never before have the travelers visited Rin 2 years in a row." The pale eyes never moved from his face. "The idea took our fancy," said Zeal the Forerunner. "We felt the need, and so we came." We thought you may need food or other trade," John persisted. "The winter has been long and hard." "It certainly has," said the girl smoothly. "And we are always pleased to trade with you, our friends, but our need is no greater than it is in any spring." "We thought that maybe you had news from the coast," Marley put in. "News of our stirring enemy, perhaps? We thought maybe you had come to warn us." Rowan watched Zeal carefully. He had seen a flicker deep in those pale eyes. Had he seen a flicker deep in those pale eyes? But she shook her head. "We have no news to tell you," she said. She is lying, thought Rowan. I can feel it. She is lying. Or at least she's not telling the whole truth. There was silence on the hill. The forerunners faced John, Marley, and Alan calmly. Plainly, they had nothing more to say. So be it, said John at last. He stepped aside so the forerunners could see Rowan clearly, and turned to him. Run to the village. Oh, sorry. What? Run to the... Let me try that again, mixing up my accents. Run to the village, then, Rowan. Tell the people what our friends have said, and there's no special reason for their visit. The idea simply took their fancy. Rowan could tell by the way that John spoke that he too felt Zeal was holding something back. And he was sure that the three forerunners weren't quite aware that the welcomers had been not... Sorry. And he was sure that the three forerunners were quite aware that the welcomers had not been fooled. They looked a little startled as they stared at him with unblinking eyes, then looked at one another as though passing unspoken messages. Rowan wasted no more time, but nodded, turned, and ran straight back down the hill toward the village. He knew the people in the square would be anxiously awaiting him, and he had no comfort to give. But there was no point in keeping them waiting, and besides, he wanted to get back to the bookshop. From the hilltop, he could see that the herd was already moving along the stream, every moment straying further and further from the village. A fence must be trotted down. He didn't want to let the beasts get too far away. Even now it would take him a long time to coax them back to their fields. He began to pant with the effort of running. Angrily he rubbed at his blocked-up nose and puffy eyes, and wished for the millionth time that he was as strong as the other boys of his age. He wished it every time he saw Jilla, his mother, trudging behind the plough that turned the soil in the field. He wished it every time he saw her back bend under the load of grain. At his age, he should be able to take his dead father's place to help her, at least in part. But when he ventured to say this, she'd only smile. Strength I have for myself, Rowan. And one day you'll be big enough to help me more in the fields. For now you help me in every other way. Let that be enough for you, as it is for me. Aw, look at that. Frickin' Mum! Go, Mum! The cheeky-faced yellow daisies bowed their head under his flying feet, and then sprang up again behind him. Pollen filled the air in a pale gold cloud. Rowan sneezed as he ran, his eyes watering so he could hardly see. Wrinkling his nose, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small green bottle. He held his breath and took a sip. The strong, horrible-tasting medicine flooded his mouth. He coughed and gasped, forcing himself to swallow. The medicine was vile, and worse to him because it came from Sheba. He shuddered to think of her bony finger which had gathered the slip-root daisies which made the brew what it was, and the pot that she stirred it in which it was simmered. He was sure the old woman cackled with laughter as she poured the potions into bottles. He was the only person in the village who had to take it. He had long ago decided that Sheba had made it especially foul-tasting for him on purpose, as some sort of cruel joke she enjoyed. With relief, he saw the shadows of the grove trees ahead. Soon he would be out of the slip daisies, and the medicine would start doing its work in a few moments. With luck, then, the sneezes and sniffles would finally leave him in peace for a while. He slowed to a walk and began threading through the trees, his eyes streaming. Used to the blinding sunlight, blinked blindly. Jesus, come on. Blah, blah, blah. That sounds like a tongue twister. Used to the bright sunlight, blinked blindly in the shady dimness. He had to feel his way. Okay, because it was dark here. Okay, cool, that makes sense. Hey, Odd Bandicoot, nice to see you. Welcome in. He slowed to a walk and began threading through the trees, his eyes streaming. Used to the bright sunlight, blinked blindly in the shady dimness. He had to feel his way. And so it was that at first he didn't see the humped shape rising in front of him. He did not shrink back in time to avoid the bony arm that shut out to bar his way. He did not twist in quickly enough to stop the iron-hard fingers gripping his shoulders, forcing him to stop. Rowan shrieked in shock and fear. The figure before him began to laugh, a frightful, jeering laugh, all too familiar. It was Sheba the Witch. Chapter 4. Alright. Now, for those of you who have just joined us, hi guys, my name is Michael, I'm DAG Gamer. We're reading a book series called The Rowan by Emily Rodda. We are into book 2, and we have only just started, really. Right now, we are back in the town of Rin in the, in the spring season after the adventures that happened in autumn. A group of other people known as the Travelers have come to Rin, but they've come relatively early, and there seems to be something happening. We're not quite sure what yet, but they're kind of like traveling, like they're kind of like they've got like the bright silks and stuff like that. They've got music, they've got dancing. So there's usually a lot of celebration surrounding the Travelers, but there are some people who don't quite like them. Like the typical kind of like worldly, like RPG kind of standard fare. We are proud people who have roots in the ground, and we are people as free as the wind. Well, we're not going to like you because you walk around and don't get real jobs, whatever. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. So right now, they've met with the forerunners, who are these kite-flying people who, sort of scout for the Travelers, and it seems like something's up. They've said that everything's fine, but no one's believing them. Also, how are you guys? Are you guys doing okay? You guys are enjoying yourselves? Let me know. Say hi in chat. As always, these DAG reads things are just a nice way for me to hang out with you guys. So, if you guys have any questions about the book, about what's going on, love, life, RPGs, let me know. Let me know. All right. Very much enjoying the story. Good, I'm glad. I'm very glad. Chapter 4. The Rhyme.
So, Rowan of the Bookshire,
the old woman said, tightening her grip on Rowan's shoulder.
Where are you going to in such a hurry?
To the village, Rowan answered timidly. He felt his nose starting to run again and sniffed.
You need another dose of my spring potion, boy,
Sheba said softly.
Your nose is running like a stream.
She pointed to the bulging bag at her feet.
I have the slip daisy root right here. I have walked all day, all the way to the hills to pull them. It is hard on my poor old bones. Tonight I will brew the potion. Is that not good? Are you not grateful to old Sheba?
Rowan scowled. The taste of the medicine was still foul in his mouth. He looked at Sheba's bag. It was stuffed to overflowing. Enough for a cauldron of the hideous stuff. Sheba's fingers pinched his shoulders.
I said, are you not grateful?
Rowan nodded dumbly. What does she want of me? He thought. Sheba pushed her face close to his. Her skin was grey, and she smelt of ash and bitter herbs. Her hair swung like greasy ropes around her shoulders.
Why have the Travelers come to the valley, Rowan of the Bookshire?
Her voice was urgent and low.
You must know, in the vision, your face is clear when all else is a mystery. Why have they come again so soon? Tell me, it may be the key.
They say they have no special reason, stammered Rowan, trying to pull back. The vision? The key? What does she mean? She drew back from her long brown teeth a snarl.
Lies!
Her eyes searched his. They were like little black holes in her face. They seemed to burn into him. He felt his head beginning to spin. He could not turn away. Finally she nodded. Her eyelids drooped.
So, she mumbled, not your lies, then, but theirs, Rowan of the Bookshire.
She pushed him aside roughly.
So I was wrong. You are of no use to me. Get out of my sight!
What's the matter? Rowan bursted out. Sheba terrified him, but he had to know what all this meant. She picked up her heavy sack and began to shuffle away. Do not go, Rowan called. Sheba, how do you know the forerunners lied? Is there some danger threatening us? Please, tell me. You must tell me. She spun around, baring her teeth at him.
I must do nothing, boy,
she cried. Her voice cracked with fury.
Who are you to order me? Do you think that because the foolish villagers think that you're a hero, you can tell me what to do? Pah!
Her eyes narrowed. She seemed filled with rage that Rowan couldn't understand.
I know you for what you are, Rowan of the Bookshire, she sneered. Skinny rabbit, weakling, runny-nosed child, scared of your own shadow, no use to your mother in her need, no use to me, no use to anyone. Run away and snivel in the Bookshire field, it is all you are good for.
Rowan shrank back down, as if he had been struck. Her words echoed in his innermost thoughts. She was right. He was no use to anyone, whatever people said. His face burned, and he turned to run from her hateful voice and spiteful face. But as he turned, he saw the mountains, rising dark and secret above the trees, and he remembered the great lessons he had learnt there, the lessons the 6 heroes with him had learnt as well, the lessons none of them would ever forget. He stopped. He swung around. Only fools do not fear, Sheba. You said that once, and it is true. I know I'm not a hero, but I know I can face fear if I must, and now I can face you and ask again, what ails you? What trouble do you feel for Rin? She stared at him.
Huh. The mountain has taught you well, she said slowly.
She looked up at the jagged rocks, the icy tips where the snow gleamed in the slow sinking sun. The jeering look that had veiled her face had dropped away, and underneath was something else. Fear. Rowan's heart leapt in terror. What thing could be so dreadful that it would bring fear to Sheba's face? What is it? He cried. She shook her head.
I do not know, she said hopelessly. I do not know. I only know my dreams, the pictures, the words that haunt me day and night. The enemy is coming again. The wheel is turning, and this time...
What pictures? What words? Rowan demanded. Tell me! Suddenly Sheba's hands began to quiver. Then the shuddering spread until her whole body was trembling as though with a terrible fever. Her eyes rolled into the back of her head. The whites gleamed horribly in the shadows of the trees with her mouth agape. Rowan sprang forward and grabbed her arm. He shook it violently. Speak! He shouted. Sheba! The gaping mouth then began to move, and the croaking chant began.
Beneath soft looks the evil burns, and slowly round the old wheel turns. The same mistakes, the same old pride, the priceless armor cast aside. The secret enemy is here, it hides in darkness, and fools beware, for day by day its power grows, and when at last its face it shows, the past and present tales will meet. The evil circle is complete. The voice trailing off into a bubbling groan. The old woman swayed. Rowan staggered as he tried to hold her, to stop her crumpling to the ground. His throat felt as though it was being gripped by an icy hand. What did this mean? Sheba's words ran round and round in his head. He searched for answers. The rhyme was about treachery, betrayal. It was not a warning for the future, nor at all. Rowan's breath caught in his chest. The secret enemy is here. The secret enemy is here. And that is the end of chapter 4. Hey, Duke of Doom! Good to see you, my friend. How are you? It's been a hot minute. I hope you are doing well. I hope life and all the things are treating you well. It's been a long time since we've played together, but yes, hope you're doing good. We are chilling out, doing a nice casual reading stream, and just hanging out, yeah.
I'm awful, but hopefully it gets better soon. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I also very much hope that it gets better soon. But that's the way things are, you know? Like, things can be rough, things can be hard, but perseverance, discipline, hard work, these are the tools to turn any rough period of time and polish it into something greater. That is what I was taught when I was a kid. It's the mantra to which I live my life. I definitely I do see struggle as what it is, you know. I don't undermine people's struggle by telling them, "Oh, I'll get stronger or be better," or, you know, whatever. I definitely take the time to acknowledge and say that, yeah, things are hard, but they always turn out. I'm currently homeless at the moment, but been through a lot worse. At least I've got a job, but so it's just gonna be time. Yeah, no, that's good, man. And great to hear that you are on the rise. You know, like I've spent some time homeless as well myself. It is not fun. It is not a picnic. I'm not gonna push into your situation, but I will say this: that yeah, look, I was homeless myself. Now I have my own house. You know, I'm going to PAX, doing some cool stuff, you know, like, yeah, you know, it gets better. Just, you know, bad spirits only make things worse. Exactly, man. Exactly. Bad, been through the same? Yeah, Vataria, thank you for sharing. Yes, no, you know, like, lots of, like, we live in an age where I feel like it's actually almost rarer if people don't spend some time actually homeless. For me, I spent it on a park bench, then in a car, then couch surfing with a few friends, then back on a bench for a while, and that was over the course of like maybe 3 to 6 months before I managed to pull myself out. But you know, like I said, takes a bit of time, takes a bit of effort, but you know, keeping good spirits is always important. But it's wonderful to see you, my friend, and you know, I'm really happy to see you. All right. And also, guys, like I said, if you want to chat and if you want to say stuff as well, we will take time between chapters to, like, chat with chat. Okay. What say we continue, eh? Got some camping gear. It's good. Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's good. Yeah, no, man, I wish I had camping gear. Not like right now. I mean, back then, I actually found out, you know, big tip, like fucking newspapers in your clothes. Really good insulation for cold nights. Although I live in Australia, so I mean, my cold nights are very different. So, also check out donut shops and like patisseries and bread places like just before closing, because usually they do good deals. Or even some places have like homeless outreach as well. I spend a lot of time eating just like stale bread, basically. It's good. It's fine. You know, it's food. Have all the tricks. That's right, Dead Aussie Gamer. Had to die in order to become the Dead Aussie Gamer. That's the trick. That's the truth behind it. Luckily at work, I'm doing good on food. Nice, awesome. All right. Also, don't drink rainwater. Found out that apparently rainwater is becoming more toxic. That's crazy, right? Think about that for a moment. Take a moment. Let's take a moment, people. Think about this, right? Someone in the freaking science world is telling me that, like, rainwater is, you know, in time going to be undrinkable. That's nuts. Outdoor markets go around time. Yeah. Yes. No. Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Yep. Free fruit and veggies are also quite available there. Those places. Yep. Lots of cool tricks. Could be staying at a hotel, but rather eating well. Yep. Nope. You know what? I agree with that. 100% agree. But then again, you know, there's very few arguments that involve food that don't side with food when it comes to me. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's just nuts. All right. So, chapter 5, the disagreement. Cross faces turn to Rowan as he stumbles at Cross faces turn to Rowan as he stumbles at last into the village square. "Where have you been, Rowan?" asked his mother. "We have been waiting so long."
So long,
repeated his little sister Anad. She put her small hand on her hip and glared at him, waiting for his explanation. I met Sheba in the trees," Rowan said hesitantly. "She hindered me." There was a murmur from the crowd. Sheba was necessary to the village, but because she made potions that heal all manner of ills. but she was feared by many as a witch and disliked by others because of her bad temper and wicked tongue.
"What does she want?"
quavered Neil the Potter.
"Oh, forget her,"
ordered Old Lan.
"Tell us the news, boy, from the hill. Now, quickly!"
Banging on the stick on the... she banged her stick on the ground. The oldest person in the village, Lan, had always been had also been its greatest fighter. Now she needed a cane to walk, but her mind and her voice were as strong as ever, and she did not like to be kept waiting. Rowan did not know what to do. Should he tell what Sheba had said? Should he say that he thought the forerunners had been lying to John? He looked around the ring of faces in the square. Some people, like Neil the Potter, were anxious. Some, like Broden, Bree, and Hannah, were suspicious. And some, like Sola the Sweetmaker, were excited. Some, like Val and Ellis from the mill, were simply curious. And Rowan knew how those faces would change if he repeated the rhyme he had heard in the trees. He did not feel certain that he could deal with the fear, anger, and panic that would sweep through the crowd. "Well?" Broden's voice rang through the silence. Rowan made his decision. He would wait until he had a chance to talk this over with his mother and Strong John in private. They would know what would be best to do. Sheba's words sounded terrifying, but it was possible that she had been playing a trick on him for spite. For now, he would just repeat the message he had been given on the hill. "The forerunners said that the travelers have no special reason for their visit," he sniffled. "They said that because he's got hay fever. They said that the idea simply took their fancy." Lan's eyes narrowed, but she said nothing. Broden snorted in disgust. "I took that." Oh my god. Oh, pardon me. That was awful. Alright. I tried my Scottish accent and all the carbon. It was gross. Let's try it again. Broden snorted in disgust. "I took their fancy to waste our time and eat our food," she said. "Oh, how excellent it must be to have such fancies." "They invited us to their camp tonight, and every night that they are here, should we care to join them," Rowan went on. Several adults and all the children cheered. Broden scowled. "Well, I, for one, certainly do not care to join them," she said. "Nor do we," said Bree, glowering at Rowan as if it were his fault. "And all who do waste their time with their and all of those who do want to waste their precious time visiting that nest of thieves should remember what we have decided. Not a word of the mountain berries must be breathed in a traveler's hearing." Wait. Okay, hold on. What was Val's voice? Val. Okay, so she was one of the. Okay. For certain they already know of them. For certain they already know of them, Bree, growled the mighty Val. "For why else have they come? This talk of fancies makes no sense." Her twin brother, Ellis, nodded in slow agreement. Again, there was a murmuring in the crowd, and this time it was an angry sound.
"Nevertheless," said Old Lan, "we will hold our tongues. If we are shutting the gate after the Bookshire have already strayed, then so be it. 'Tis better to be careful than to be sorry. And as well as keeping our mouths shut, we must keep the travellers out of the gardens at all cost."
The gardens aren't the only place where the berry bushes can be found," Timon reminded. "Alan and the rest of the 7 who climbed the mountain have bushes of their own. The birds have feasted on plenty of their berries and have likely spread the seeds. New plants are popping up everywhere, more every day. The village is already sweet with their scent." He waved his hands around the village. "Then we must tell the slips that they're not welcome in the village," said Bree. "They must stay in their camp on the hill." "We cannot do that, Bree," Timon objected. "The travellers are our friends and our allies in this time of trouble. And allies in times of trouble." "I agree. We cannot afford to anger the travellers," Jilla said quietly. "We have fought the Zebak together in the past and may need to do so one day again. We need their friendship."
"And they need ours." Old Lan held her head high. "So they will have to abide by what we say, Jilla, for good or for ill. This matter is too important for us to let weakness guide us.
Bree, Hannah, and Broden nodded in agreement. So did many others.
So it is decided, said Lan curtly. 'Twill be done.
Jilla made a small sound of irritation and dismay, and Timon looked very grave. They were not the only ones who thought that the decision was a foolish one. Rowan could imagine what Alan, Marley, and John would say when they heard that the travellers were to be barred from the village. He turned and began to walk from the square. The meeting was making him uncomfortable, and he had to see to the bookshire. Soon the sun would slip behind the mountains, and the valley would begin to grow dark and chill. It was important that he returned them to their field before then.
Rowan, where are you going?
Called Annan. She ran up to him and tugged at his hand.
We must go home, so that we can be ready for dinner early. John is coming to eat with us, and then afterwards we can all go to the travellers' camp together, Mother says.
I have to go to the bookshire fields first, Anad, Rowan told. Star and the others strayed while I was on the hill.
Why?
The little girl asked. Rowan smiled. Well, maybe like the travellers, the idea took their fancy. He joked weakly. Don't worry, Anad. If bringing the beasts home takes too long, I will miss dinner and will meet you, Mother, and John at the camp. You tell Mother for me, all right? She nodded and ran back to the crowd. Rowan began walking to the field. He turned once and saw Anad waving to him. He waved back and then went on his way. What a funny little girl she is, he thought. Always asking why. Why is the sky blue? Why can't I stay up all night? Why do tadpoles eat weeds and then frogs eat insects? Why that? Actually, why that indeed? Why do tadpoles eat weeds and frogs eat insects? Why are tadpoles herbivores? Inside bonus. Alright, here's an inside bonus. W is the only letter that starts with a different letter of the alphabet. Done. That is your insight. Enjoy. Happy? Hope you're happy with that. That's your insight. Why did the clouds just fall down? Why have the bookshire strayed? Rowan reached the bookshire pool, and there was no sign of the beasts at all. With a sigh, he began to trudge along the stream. Why had the bookshire strayed? Today of all days. There was plenty of new grass in the field, plenty of water. The bookshire never moved far from the pool, but today they had, just when Rowan wanted to get home with all speed. Sheba's terrible chant was weighing him down. Cruel joke or not, he wanted to share it with his mother and John, and relieve himself of the burden of carrying it alone. He squinted ahead and saw the bookshire in the far distance. They were still moving downstream. He quickened his step. Life of Rin goes on day by day, unchanging, he thought. And then 3 strange, worrying things happen all at once. The travellers arrive, Sheba's afraid, or at least pretends to be, and now the bookshire stray? It is bad luck. Then he frowned. Was it just bad luck? Or were all 3 things somehow related? The sun dipped behind the mountain. Light began to dim. Rowan shivered. Again, Sheba's words, ringing in his brain. The enemy is here. The enemy is here. Chapter 6. Alright. Coolios. Yeah, there we go. So still, nothing's really happened yet. You know, there's lots of suspicion, lots of intrigue. We're meeting a new cast of characters from the town of Rin. Some were, you know, bit parts in the first one. Others quite major, like John and Alan and stuff. Yeah, it's a short, it's a young adult novel, so you know the chapters aren't very long, but it's very rich in world lore. I mean, the book itself, you know, when all said and done, is actually quite thick when you get through the whole series. But yeah, chapters keep a pretty steady pace, I think. Any questions from chat? Any thoughts on like what's going on or what's happening? Feel free to throw them in there. Like short chapters. Yeah, they're good. Frogs eat stones. They're not nervous. Yeah, that's true. Frogs eat anything. You put it in front of them, just go. Yep. I had a pet frog for a short period of time. It was very cute. I think one of my cats might have eaten it because it got out and we don't know where it went. But it used to live in our bathroom because that's where we had our heating lamp, and it disappeared one day. We thought either it's escaped down the drain, which is fine, be free frog, or one of the cats got it. We're not sure. It's hard to say. Let's see, what do we have here? The word that begins with book. How is that spelt? The name of the town where they live. The word that begins with book. How is that spelt? The name of the town is Rin. Oh, the Bookshaw. Right. Yep. So Bookshaw is spelt. Yep. Bookshaw. Bookshaw is spelt B. I'm gonna write it in chat. BUKSHAS. SHAH. Bookshaw. Could be Buckshaw. But yeah, I'm saying it Bookshaw. You know. I'm very quiet because I'm trying to get back in crocheting. It's easy. Ah, well, that's cool. I hope that the crocheting is going well. Yeah, Bookshaw. And yeah, the town they live is called Rin. Rin is the location. Hey, Modbrew, nice to see you. Welcome in. Just for you, Modbrew. Super quick recap. We are reading Rowan and the Travelers. Long story short, Rowan comes from a town called Rin. It is filled with the descendants of warriors who rebelled against the Zebak, who were like ancient enemies and stuff. They live in a small, quiet village nestled in the mountains. A group of travelers who are allies to the village have shown up unexpectedly. There's a mystery surrounding why they've shown up, and everyone's kind of suspicious. The town of Rin currently has these mountain berries that they just got from the previous book, where they went up a mountain and found these mountain berries. So they're trying to keep them a secret from the travelers so that they can, make some money and stuff like that. The old witch has given Rowan a very, very ominous message, which I'll read for you. Okay, so here it is. It is, beneath soft looks the evil burns, and slowly round the old wheel turns. The same mistakes, the same old pride, the priceless armor cast aside. The secret enemy is here, it hides in darkness, fools beware. For day by day its power grows, and when at last its face it shows, then past and present tales will meet, the evil circle is complete. So that is the rhyme that the old witch has told our protagonist Rowan. Would you say Rowan is from Rin? Yes, Rowan is from Rin. I've been up since 4:30 most of the time. I'm glad. Please if you fall asleep during this stream, I will consider it a great honor and a great pleasure, because it means that I am comforting and relaxing, and that makes me feel good. So thank you, Votaria. Have you read anything by Douglas Adams? I'm actually not that big a reader, to be honest. Like, outside of the D&D stuff, I know it's very ironic, but I'm mostly movies and comics. But this was one of the first books that got me into fantasy, and I thought it'd be a good thing to introduce to my community and do as a DAG Reads, to see if you guys, like DAG Reads. Before I would say Hollywood, Traveler's Guide to Douglas Adams, David Eddings. Oh, David Eddings. I have not read anything by David Eddings. Although, there is another series that I do want to read for you guys after this one. It is a horror series, which I think will make McBluff very happy. But yeah, maybe. It's kind of a horror one. It's like a young adult horror kind of thing. It's by, I think it's by Paul Jennings and Morris Gleisman? Yeah, two very quirky Aussie writers. But yeah. Falling asleep or getting close has happened a few times with DAG Reads. Good. Excellent. I love that. I prefer not to fall asleep as I'm hiking. Please don't fall asleep hiking, Hester. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Whew. Chapter 6. The Valley of Gold. And so the giants of Inspray fought on the mountainside to see which of them would have the fabled Valley of Gold for themselves. For 6 long days and 6 long nights they fought. The sounds of their shouting was like a furious hurricane, and the clash of their weapons was like 1,000 cymbals, and the stamping of their feet like thunder. And still neither would give in. Oh, actually, you know what? That's a whole, like, because they missed out on the quotation thing, so that's actually a thing. Let's do the voice, because this is Ogden the storyteller. Let's make a voice for him. What do we do? Yes, I think Sean Connery would do okay for this one. And so the giants of Inspray fought on the mountainside to see which one of them would have the fabled Valley of... No, okay, Deckard Cain. Yes, Deckard Cain from Diablo. Yes. Stay a while and listen. My name's Deckard Cain, and I hail from Tristan. If you're looking for Diablo, I think you just missed him. No, okay, cool. Yep, I got it. Yes, Deckard Cain. And so, the giants of Inspray fought on the mountainside, and to see which one of them would have the fabled Valley of Gold for himself. For 6 long days and long nights they fought. The sounds of their shouting were like furious hurricanes, and the clash of their weapons was like 1,000 cymbals. And the stamping of their feet was like thunder, and neither would still give in. I love that. That's cool. Yes. Ogden the storyteller sat by his fire telling his story, and around him clustered many children of Rin and traveller children alike. For though the traveller children had heard Ogden's story before, time and time again, they never tired of them. Behind them in the shadows stood a tall figure. Stood taller figures. These were the Rin adults who had been drawn to Ogden's campfire. Rowan could see Timon the teacher among the rest. Maze, the keeper of the book, stood with him. And there was Alan, too, with Sarah and Marley, and Sola, the sweet maker. The adults might laugh afterwards at the traveller's tales. They might say the stories Ogden's told were not truth but legend, cleverly brought to life. Still now they would be listening as carefully as anyone else. Rowan knew that his mother and Strong John of the Orchard were in the crowd as well, for Anna had sat behind him now at the fire. He had not had time to see or speak to them yet. He had come straight to the camp from the Bookshire field. It had taken hours to see the beast safely home. When he had finally caught up with the herd, he needed to speak softly to Star for a long time before she obeyed him, and led the others back to the Rin. Then he mended as best he could the gate that they had pushed open to start their wandering. He had hoped that they would settle to sleep by now. They could easily break the gate down again should they choose, and Star had still seemed restless, but surely she would not try to roam again in the dark. Ogden's voice rose, breaking into Rowan's thoughts. The storyteller was reaching his story's climax. For 6 days and nights the earth on the mountainside was trampled and blood-stained. For 6 days and nights the grass was torn, and the trees were battered. For 6 days and nights the air was filled with the terrible sounds of the giant's fury and the foul smell of the giant's sweat and hatred. And then, just as the 7th day dawned, and the battle still raged, it was though the mountain cried, "No more!" The ground trembled. Great cracks and pits opened in the land, and smoke and flame rose up to the cloud sky. Huge rocks fell crashing from the mountain, beating giants, tearing down trees, tumbling pile upon each other around the Valley of Gold, and the people in the valley were terrified. They cried and clung to each other, thinking that now indeed was their last hour, and it had finally come. Ogden looked around at the wide-eyed children sitting at his feet. The wood of his campfire popped and spat. Under his beaky nose his lips curved into a smile. His voice dropped to a murmur. And then, at last, the fighting stopped. As the smoke cleared and the dust lay still, the giants lay dying on the mountainside, their bodies broken by the rocks the mountain had flung at them in anger. They looked down with glazed eyes, seeking one last glimpse of the beautiful place that each had wanted for their own. And then they groaned, they howled, they shook their battered fists in helpless rage and pain, for all they could see below were great piles of stone, and a yawning pit that scarred the earth. The golden prize which they had fought for in fury had been their death, was now gone from sight, gone from the sight of all those who had threatened it, gone forever, gone, gone, gone. Ogden's voice dropped away to nothing. "Oh no," whispered Anad, who had not heard the story before. She clenched her fist. "Oh, those wicked giants destroying the Valley of Gold, the rocks falling and covering it. They crashed down and killed all the good, wise people. They buried the jeweled paths and the silver springs and the fruits and the birds and the little white horses and—" Rowan took her hand. "Shh, Anna, listen," he said softly. Ogden nodded. His black eyes gleamed in the firelight. "The giants cursed and weeping. They cursed each other, and they cursed the mountains. They wept for the loss of their brightest treasure in the land. But they did not know that the mountain's secrets." He paused. "Do you?" The children around him, even those who had heard the story over and over again, shook their heads wordlessly. They wanted Ogden to tell the end. He leant forward. His voice was as gentle as an evening breeze. "Then I will tell you. The Valley of Gold was not destroyed by the rain of stones. Even as its people clung together, terrified and fearing death, they saw a miracle taking place. No rocks were falling into the valley." Rowan felt Anad's hand tighten in his. Ogden's soft voice went on. "While all the earth cracked open and huge rock piled up in heaps, the Valley of Gold remained secure and protected. And when the fall had ended, the great new hill of the mountain stone had risen up around it, and the hideous pit of Urin, crawling with evil and death, barred the way to the entrance. So the people knew now that their home was safe forever from prying eyes and greedy hands, and they could live on in peace and happiness without fear, forever." Anad could not contain herself. So the Valley of Gold, it's still there beyond the mountain?" she squeaked. "And the people, and the white horses, and the painted houses, and the silver springs, and the—" Ogden smiled. "As I told you, young one," he said. "But from that day to this, no outsider has ever seen it. Even the travelers, the great friends of the valley people in ages past, do not know where it is. For the travelers were doing battle with the Zebak on the coast when the giants of Inspray fought and died. Many foolish souls, those who believe only what they can see and say it exists no more," he went on. "Some say, indeed, the Valley of Gold never existed at all. But I know it did, and does, and so now you do also." Ogden leaned back and folded his arms. Anad relaxed, breathing a sigh of pleasure and contentment. Rowan wondered yet again about the power of Ogden, the storyteller. His words could hold you in a spell as powerful as any spun with special herbs, picked in the moonlight, or read from an ancient book. Rowan had heard the story of the Valley of Gold several times now, but every time was like the first. Even now, with all things that were fulfilling his mind, the spell had worked on him. Again his mind was filled with wonder. Again he almost believed in the fabled Valley of Gold. He closed his eyes as Ogden's voice whispered in his memories. "The Valley of Gold, a wondrous place filled with light and life and laughter, the silver spring bubbling cool and fresh from beneath the earth, bright colored lanterns in the trees, beautiful people, tall and strong, wise and good, flowers and fruits of every kind spilling across the paths of gleaming gems that wound between the gardens. Small white horses saddled with silk, houses painted with beautiful patterns on each one. Before each house a golden bird, an owl with emerald eyes. Almost Rowan believed. Almost he believed that out there, beyond Rin, beyond the mountain, lay a place of peace and beauty, lost and hidden from prying eyes, waiting, just waiting. The Valley of Gold, Anna had breathed, her face radiant. The Valley of Gold. That is the end of this chapter. All right. Let's see, where are we at? I think this might be a good place to call tonight. We've gotten through 6 chapters of this particular book, and I think it is a good point to stop because I will need to take some time to get stuff ready, of course, for, as you guys know, I will be at PAX, so there will be no regular streams on this week, because Wednesday onwards, I will be doing some coverage of PAX, hanging out with folks, attending panels and things. I'm not running any panels, unfortunately, but you will get to see all of the shenanigans in part. I'll see if I can do a Twitch stream while I'm there. Again, it'll depend on things like internet access and stuff like that. But be sure to follow us here and on Twitter. And if you haven't done so already, give us a follow on Instagram, because I'm going to be doing a couple of things on Instagram that are going to be Instagram exclusive. So there you go. Thank you for the bedtime story. No, thank you guys. Thank you guys, as always, for the delightful company. Gonna miss you in your streams. Ah, thank you. Thank you. You will still see, like I said, I'll still be streaming some things here and there. And this will be also a stream that I'll be doing with Robert and stuff. There you go. Boom. Mwah. Let's see. Who are we going to go and raid? Let's see. We shall raid. Let's raid. Who's doing a just chillin' stream? Let's meet a new friend. Let's see. Who's in the just chillin' stage? Here we go. Just chatting. Who's just chatting? Let's go hang out with... Let's see. Bup. Sunday cooking. I mean, is anyone doing like a read thing? Lots of people just chilling out. You know what? I think we'll just end the stream. As much as I do love raiding and stuff like that, I think we just have... I'm not going to go through all of Twitch to try and find someone to raid. But, guys, stay safe, stay warm, stay lovely. Until we meet again, for some of you in person, from me to you, as always, game hard or die trying. Good night, guys.